There are stories behind every huge empire and industry in the world, and you've probably heard about those which tell you how a person had to start from scratch and work their way up to become successful. Well, the empire of Louis Vuitton is an example of such a story. The founder had absolutely nothing to his name upon the initiation of the company, yet he still managed to produce an empire that's worth over $30 billion today, and leads as the #1 luxurious accessory brand in the world. Welcome to Tales of Titans, the place where business and history come to life. Here's the story of how Louis Vuitton came to be. Louis Vuitton had its origins from way back in the 19th century in France, which was recovering from the aftermath of a series of wars. Because of the war, there was a huge shortage of resources and people needed a lot of food, crops, and other supplies. As such, Xavier Vuitton, a farmer in Angers, France, started putting his son and himself to work on the farm. The son and the father spent the whole of their days tending to the crops and rearing the livestock they had. Their son, Louis, was put to work at a young age. However, at the age of 10, his mother passed, and a stepmother came in who abhorred Louis and made his life a living hell. 3 years of torture were more than enough for him to leave the house with no money or food and head straight to Paris. The homeless Louis Vuitton arrived in Paris and started working under different kinds of artisans to learn how the craftsmen worked their wonders to create all these accessories, metal items, and other such equipment. The pay from these jobs was not enough for him, as he still wound up sleeping on the streets. This was the beginning of an empire, however, as the railway line had just been developed and travel became more common. People needed a way to take their belongings with them in a more efficient and elegant way. That's when Louis decided to capitalize on this and work under a craftsman named Monsieur Marechal. Working under Marechal, he learned how to create many beautiful boxes for the public, and because of his astute talent, the Empress decided to appoint him as her own personal box maker. By the end of the first year, he had gained a huge reputation, and demand for his work increased to the point where he decided to open his very first shop. The very first Louis Vuitton shop was erected in 1854. As soon as he began work, Louis experimented with different ideas. He had seen how the dome-topped boxes that were already in use at the time were difficult to handle, impossible to stack, and susceptible to water damage. At that point, he came up with the idea of making rectangular, flat-surfaced boxes with canvas as the new material, which turned out to be much more durable and water-resistant too. By 1867, Louis had introduced several industry-standard changing inventions into the world, such as slat trunks and handbags, which were so well received by the public that he began receiving dozens of orders, which he couldn't keep up with alone. In 1854, Louis married Clémence Émile Pariot and had a son with her named Georges Vuitton. He started helping his father out around the shop and inherited his ingenious talents. George had a bright mind like his father, and it wasn't long before he invented security for the boxes with the new tumbler lock. Since these locks weren't easily picked, they still introduced a safety standard into the business. The Franco-Prussian War left the Vuittons with no choice but to flee Paris and head north to a refugee camp where they lived their days in hunger and fear. However, they managed to pull through and return to Paris to see their beloved workshop robbed and destroyed. This didn't put them down for long, as Louis quickly relocated and built his workshop from the ground up with the last remaining bills he had in his savings. The new shop was located at 1 Rue Scribe, and in a mere few months after reopening, Louis' business was up and running at full capacity. He soon became an international icon and got orders from everywhere in the world. The introduction of the loom allowed people to make custom designs on fabrics, like stripes, and Louis decided to make his new trunks with a striped pattern, which quickly took off and became an international sensation. Due to how many orders he was getting from abroad, Louis decided to open a branch of his shop in England in 1885. Once he opened the shop, the work didn't get easier, however, since another shop meant more international icons were demanding his work. At this point in time, he was already considered the maker of the most luxurious items, and his products could be found in every elite or royal person's house. Once Louis began to get swamped with even more work, he decided to release his first ever catalog, which showed all his available products to make it easier to order them. This led to a more streamlined ordering system, which Louis was very proud of. Tragically, Louis passed away that same year inside his house, and it was now all up to his son George to inherit his father's legacy and keep it running towards even more success. In 1893, the United States was hosting a world fair, and once George got news of this, he packed his things and headed for Chicago. His primary goal was to expand the business internationally into the United States, and after he attended the event, he came to the realization that he desperately needed a sales network that could help him manage his orders. That's when he partnered up with U.S. Postmaster General John Wanamaker. He helped George create his very first outlet in New York. This was the year George introduced the iconic Louis Vuitton logo, which was a consecrated L and V in memory of his late great father. Just like how his father worked with his son to continue the family trade, George did the same with his son, Gaston Vuitton. Together, they worked wonders and introduced even more fashionista items into the market, like the posh bags to carry specific items like expensive drinks, and a redesign of a Chanel handbag, which they proudly named the Alma. George had taken his time to travel the whole of the U.S. and create a large distribution network that aided him in getting his orders all over the country. Sadly, like his father, he too passed away relatively early at the age of 79 in the year 1936. In 1936, World War II had already begun, and George's son Gaston had no choice but to halt all production and shut down all the international stores and factories. Gaston was only focused on surviving the ongoing atrocities and resorted to collaborating with the different parties involved in the war. While other brand labels got shut down, Louis Vuitton was the only one allowed to remain open because of the commemorative bus that Gaston was allegedly having. Once the war was over, Gaston turned to his sons Henry, Jacques, and Claude Vuitton for the rebuilding of the Louis Vuitton empire. Due to the long history of inheritance that ran in the Vuitton family, the three sons had amazing craftsmanship qualities as well, and every year they pumped out new models of briefcases, handbags, and other luxury items. And up until the passing of their father in 1970, everything was going rather smooth. Soon after, the business experienced a dip and began to dwindle due to hard bags becoming less popular. Due to the uncertainty that the three brothers had to face, they turned to their sister's husband, Henry Recamier, who took over the company. Henry already initiated a steel company, which he later sold and focused on Louis Vuitton completely. Under his keen business knowledge, he quickly turned the wholesale company into a retail one, with shops being opened in Japan. The company went from being worth only $20 million at the time to $260 million, more than 10 times its original worth. This showed the immaculate business sense that Henry had. Before 1987, the stock market showed constant fluctuations in the worth of Louis Vuitton, and experts had suggested that due to the introduction of fake Louis Vuitton products, the business was going to collapse. Henry didn't budge and kept expanding and proved everyone wrong, because by that year, the company's worth had reached the $1 billion amount. Henry took things further by pairing up with the luxury champagne and cognac producer Moet Hennessy. Together, the joint label was called LVMH, and later, disputes arose between both companies' presidents. A series of legal disputes and inviting people to take stands, a realtor named Bernard Anouilh took over and business dwindled yet again. A realtor managing a luxury brand was not bound for success. Only under Yves Carcel did Louis Vuitton manage to take the lead again, since creative designers from all over the world came in and reshaped the handbag industry for the 100th anniversary of the company. Since then, the company has only grown further and further and expanded itself into other accessories like watches, jewelry, and sunglasses, which are all considered the most luxurious in the world. The net worth of Louis Vuitton has reached $32 billion, and it is continuously growing with the introduction of newer products every year. And that is how a young boy with no experience or money was able to create the world's most expensive, valuable, and luxurious brand that is worth billions. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more amazing content. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.